How long do you stay on your live streams if not many people show up? I've had this happen, and 1 out of 2, I didn't get a second piece of that. So let me just read it again. How long do you stay on your live streams if not many people show up? I've had this happen, and this is definitely one of those things that happens a lot because social media is slow to tell people that we are out and live, especially recently. We know with things like YouTube and some of the other platforms, Facebook, they don't really tell people. They'll just kind of show things in feed as people are scrolling through. So if people stumble across it, cool. We know that Instagram tells people up at the top of the tray with the stories. They'll tell people, our followers, people who specifically follow us, if we're live. TikTok puts us out in the feed, but they only show certain things at certain times to certain people, and it's kind of a pain. There was a time when it was really easy to get traction on a TikTok live stream, and that is just not the case anymore. So, with that in mind, you have to keep a couple of things in your realm of what you're paying attention to. So as you jump onto your live streams, you need to be starting off by giving really good quality content. This is important for everywhere but TikTok because there's replays everywhere. So you have to focus on giving really good, strong content for your replay audience. The vast majority of your people will be on the replay audience. Like 90% of your views come from the replay audience. If people don't show up to your live, that's fine. It just means you don't have a ton of interaction, but you should be delivering quality if you're going to be posting this anywhere. If you are jumping into like a Q&A, have questions ready. Frequently asked questions, questions that were asked earlier on Instagram. You can put out a call for questions in advance and they'll come up in the question box, like the whole thing. Have something to talk about. You want to make sure that you are there and you sound like a logical, rational person who arrived with a reason. If you sit around and say, I'm just going to wait for people to show up, I'm just going to wait for somebody to show up, they're going to leave. There's no reason for people to stay on a replay if that's how you're going to behave. So your goal is to remember the beginning of your live stream is for your replay audience. Now, if you are jumping on and you have a conversation in mind, that's fantastic. That's what you should be doing. If nobody shows up, deliver your content and then go. That's fine. That's not a problem. If you're doing like an open Q&A like I'm doing here, you do want to make sure you've got something to talk about at the beginning, because when people jump on, when they're scrolling through like TikTok's feeds and they see you have to be doing something to get their attention. If you're just like hanging, waiting for people to ask questions, that's not going to help. So if they see you engaged, if they see you answering questions, then they will stick around for more. You then have the ability to end it there if nobody's around, and you're good. If people start to show up, great. Put the calls out, have something to talk about, do something on air. You notice the last couple of live streams that I've been doing, I've been crocheting a hat for Halloween for my costume. Right now, I'm photoshopping. I am doing actual work on my computer, and if you are just scrolling through, you can see me working on something. That will make people curious. By having something to do other than just sitting around staring at the camera saying, I hope somebody asks me questions, do this, that, and the other thing, you're giving them the ability to get curious and to see what you're doing, and they'll stick around just to try to figure it out, but then they'll also maybe ask some questions to try to figure it out. So that will give you a really good basis to get that conversation going. Planting audience members is also really helpful. Your mom, your best friend, your sister, have them in there just to chat. You can give them questions that they can ask you, or you can just have them ask questions if you think they're savvy enough to do that and get the ball rolling. When people see people talking, people ask more questions. They have more conversations. And so with that in mind, you are here to specifically get their attention and keep their attention by doing something and having conversation while you are on air. So come prepared with things to talk about, come with questions that you can answer and plant people if you need to, and then you'll be good to go. Now, if it's quiet, give them the opportunity to talk. If you run out of things to talk about, you can put out a couple final calls. That's fine. You'll notice if you follow me, if people don't show up or if TikTok isn't telling people, I'll stall a little bit. I'll tell some stories. I'll hang out. I'll explain what I'm doing. Like, we'll talk about the crocheted hat, all of the things. And I give an opportunity. I put out a number of calls before I leave. But honestly, it's up to you. If you feel like it's pulling teeth to get people just to talk to you, you don't have to stay. First off, nobody knows how long you've been on air. You might have been on air for the last hour and everybody kind of petered off. Even if it was only 5 minutes. You don't know. Wrap it up. That's fine. You can wrap it up. They don't know when they came in. They didn't come in when you first started. If you're doing it on a platform where people are going to see a replay, babies, I'm going to give you a little hint. On Instagram, they don't put the chat box in the replay. It's just a video. Nobody knows if there was one person in that room or 20 people in that room. Speak as if there were 30 or 50 or 100. Nobody knows unless they were in that room. So when I do it, I will typically try to hang out for 15-20 minutes, just like a college professor. If you're in a college class and your professor doesn't show up in the first 20 minutes, you're allowed to leave. Same basic theory, hang out for 15-20 minutes. If you feel uncomfortable, if you feel like you don't like it, if you feel like it's draining, if you feel like it's problematic, end it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. The only way they're going to know is if they watch the replay. And if it didn't go well for you, don't post the replay. If you answered 1 or 2 good questions and you don't feel like the rest of it went really well, don't post the replay. Download the footage, clip it out, use that. There's a lot of ways you can deal with this. But typically, I will stay around until I'm 100% positive nobody's going to talk to me and nobody else has been showing up for a long time. And it really is a subjective thing. Do it when it makes sense for you to leave based on how you're feeling, based on how people are interacting. And then just, try to put out as many calls as possible, but also have things to do in between it. Because if we're just begging all the time for people to talk to you, that's not going to be very helpful. You want to make sure you've got quality content or stories or something you can explain, something that you can have a conversation about to make sure you're facilitating that conversation.